What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another UFC breakdown video. And this weekend we got UFC Vegas 86. Last weekend we were like 7.5 units profitable. And yeah, on the year we're 8.25 units profitable. So we're having a great year. We're starting off 2024 very strong. And for this main event, Joe Pyfer versus Jack Hermansson. Everyone's talking about this Joe Pyfer guy. A punch force stronger than Francis Ngannou? This guy's a middleweight. This guy's 185 pounds. They recorded his punch on that little punch bag thingy that they have at the UFC. I think it's at the PI. And yeah, apparently he recorded a punch force that's greater than Francis Ngannou. And some will say like he had more like wind up on the punch than Francis did, so that's why he was able to generate that much force or whatever. But yeah, it's a scary guy ultimately. I think that Jack Hermansson honestly has a good chance to pull off an upset here as a plus 220 dog. I think he is. He's a plus 220 underdog, I believe. I think that Jack Hermansson definitely has upset potential in this matchup. I think that the grappling of Joe Pyfer is something to be questioned, and Jack Hermansson is a world class grappler. So we're gonna definitely see Joe Pyfer being put to the test. First up on the bout order, we got Daniel Marcos versus Arichi Lang. My official pick for this fight is Daniel Marcos to win by KO or decision, 1 unit. I think that Daniel Marcos has much better striking than Arichi Lang. He's incredibly aware of like which side his opponent is circling to, like where their head is moving, and I think that he's going to outstrike Arichi Lang. I don't think that Arichi Lang is going to be able to get this fight to the ground. I don't think he's going to even try to grapple. I think it's just going to be a stand-up fight, and Daniel Marcos is going to get the better of it. Moving on up the card, we got Fernie Garcia versus Hyder Emil. Now, Fernie Garcia was not the original opponent for this matchup. It was Melsik Bagdasarian, but he got injured. Fernie Garcia stepped in, and I don't think that this is a great matchup for Fernie Garcia, to be honest with you, because Hyder Emil is like a constant pace, constant pressure type of fighter. It's his UFC debut, so it could be a little bit, nerve wracking for him. Who knows? Who knows that? That's the intangibles. But just looking at the bare, raw facts, Fernie Garcia has been on a 3 fight losing streak since he joined the UFC from the Contender Series, and hasn't really shown us anything where we as MMA fans can look at him and be like, oh, this is an area where he's going to be dominant in this matchup. So whenever I look at this matchup, I think that Hyder Emil's pace and pressure is going to be too much for Fernie Garcia, and he's going to end up knocking him out or getting a decision victory. And in this case, I think that Fernie Garcia is durable enough to survive the entire 3 rounds. Moving on up the card, now we are going into Zach Pauga versus Bogdan Guskov. And yeah, I am honestly dreading this matchup. I think that this is going to be a lot of clinching. After the first round, this is just going to be clinching and just like foot stomping, little clinch strikes against the cage. It's going to be a painful fight to watch. We're going to be waiting. We're going to probably have to do a beer break or some kind of intermission whenever this fight is going on. I think that Zach Pauga honestly has higher level, or the experience level of his opponents, I would say, is higher. And I think that he has shown us that he can do a little bit more, even if it's just, pushing his opponents against the cage and controlling them for 15 minutes. So I think that Zach Pauga wins this one by decision, and I'm not willing to bet much more than 0.25 units on this fight. So I'm going to go with a quarter unit on Zach Pauga to win this fight by decision. Moving on up the card, we go to one of my favorite, most anticipated fights coming up this weekend. We got Max Griffin versus Jeremiah Wells. And last fight, I took Jeremiah Wells' money line. I'm not going to lie to you. I took Jeremiah Wells' money line, and I was burned badly by Jeremiah Wells. He kind of just put his head perfectly in and served Carlston Harris an anaconda choke. Yeah, I was devastated by it, but now I've made note of it, and now that he's up against Max Payne Griffin, I am ready to fade Jeremiah Wells. I think that Max Payne Griffin is going to be able to keep the fight standing, and not only that, he's going to be landing big shots on Jeremiah Wells from round 1 all the way to round 3. He's just going to be consistently landing bombs. I got Max Griffin at plus 142, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, he's a 2-unit play for me. Moving on up the card, we have Devin Clark versus Marcin Prachnio. And I think Devin Clark is due a win here after being choked out cold against Kennedy and Nzechukwu. I think that Devin Clark finally has a matchup where they're not going to try to choke him out. They're going to try to stand and trade with him. Honestly, Prachnio has one of those move in and out and move laterally and don't get hit type of styles. I think that this fight's going to go the distance. I think that the stylistic matchup is very distance friendly. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I like Devin Clark to win, but my official pick for this fight is over 2.5 rounds. I think it's at minus 180. Moving on up the card, we got Loma Lukbunmi versus Bruna Brazil. And both of these girls, Thai fighters, Muay Thai fighters. Loma, she has a lot more weaponry. And what I mean by that, whenever I watch Bruna Brazil, she seems to like to stay at range and just explode with big shots. Whereas Loma, she can do a little bit of everything. She can go into the clinch, she can land knees, she can, extend on kicks. She can do it anything. So I feel more comfortable, and I feel like Loma is the more versatile and more proven fighter. And so I'm going with Loma. And I think that Loma wins this by decision. I think that Loma is going to win this fight by decision. Moving on up the card, we got Balaji Oki versus Timothy Kwamba. Now, both of these guys are Contender Series guys. Timothy Kwamba, he has good boxing. He was at 145. He did like a little point fighting, and Dana White was quite disappointed by Dana White's Contender Series performance. Said he wasn't ready for the big shows. Now, Kwamba just got a head kick knockout like last Friday or something, and Dana White calls him up and says, yo, Balaji Oki no longer has an opponent. You want to move up a weight class and step in on short notice? I think that that's how this played out. And I honestly think that Timothy Kwamba has the athleticism to dance around and outbox Balaji Oki. But it is a scary bet to make, especially with all the different variables involved, short notice, all that kind of stuff. I'm not willing to take Timothy Kwamba. I couldn't even find the value on the books. That odds makers haven't even determined odds for this fight. Yeah, I'm honestly just looking and waiting for fight to go the distance. Since Balaji Oki is such a powerful puncher, I think that fight to go the distance is going to be at like plus 200. I think that they're going to expect a finish. But I'm looking for plus 200 fight to go the distance, and I want to hammer that shit. Because I think that Timothy Kwamba has a chin already. He's moving up to 155 where he's going to be even more hydrated, more ready for the big shots. And yeah, I just think that this fight 100% goes the distance. Moving on up the card, we have what I think is the featured prelim, and it's between Trevin Giles and Carlos Prates. Now, Carlos Prates, I believe, is the favorite to win this fight, and it's surprising to me because he's a Contender Series fighter. He hasn't even had his UFC debut. This is his UFC debut, and he's going up against Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles is a proven UFC talent. He's beaten Preston Parsons, and Preston Parsons is not the best, but he can actually grapple and shit. So yeah, I think that Carlos Prates, they're gonna stand and bang. Trevin Giles has an awkward style. They're both gonna get hit. I think both of them are gonna get hit, and that's why I think there's no reason why Trevin Giles should be plus 200. I'm going with Trevin Giles money line in this pick because there's no reason. There's absolutely no reason. And now to start off the main card, we got Rodolfo Vieira versus Armin Petrosyan. We got the return of Armin Petrosyan, the Superman. I don't think that Rodolfo Vieira is going to be able to take this fight to the ground, nor do I think he lands shots on him. I think Armin is going to dance around him. Typical Petrosyan masterclass. He does it all the time. Decision win, unanimous decision, Armin Petrosyan. Let's go, baby. Moving on up the card, we got Michael Johnson versus Darius Flowers. And do not tell me Do not tell me that Darius Flowers is going to win this fight. Do not tell me that shit, because I'm not buying that shit at all. Even his win on the Contender Series was fluky as hell. I am not buying that this guy is anything worth the UFC. So I don't understand why this money line, it's a pick'em line. It's a pick'em line. Michael Johnson versus Darius Flowers is a pick'em line. I don't understand it at all. Michael Johnson still has got some juice left. This guy is moving down from welterweight to lightweight. There's going to be some questions. Is his chin going to hold up? Obviously, Darius Flowers still young, so his chin is probably going to hold up. But his hand speed is so slow. Is his hand speed going to, get better as he goes down? I hope so, but is it going to be at the point of being as good as Michael Johnson's? No. Michael Johnson is going to land crazy shit on this guy in round 1. And I hope he survives, because he's going to land a lot more than Jake Matthews was landing on him in his last fight. Moving on up the card, we got Brad Tavares versus Gregory Rodriguez. Now, let us not forget that Brad Tavares went to war, 3-round war with Chris Weidman after Chris Weidman snapped his leg into 2 pieces and came back at age 38. At age 38, I'm rocking with Gregory Rodriguez, and I'm feeling very comfortable about it. I think that he's going to destroy Brad Tavares, and he's more well-rounded, he's more smarter, and he fights with purpose. So I'm going with Gregory Rodriguez. Moving on up the card, we got Robert Brickshek versus Ihor Potieria, and I'm going with Robert Brickshek by round 1 KO. And I think that Ihor Potieria, he fights with this karate-style brawling, and I think that Robert is going to be more athletic than him. I think he's going to catch him with some big shots, and yeah, I just don't trust Ihor. Ihor almost had a win just perfectly on a silver platter and just let it go in round 2, I believe. So yeah, I just don't trust Ihor anymore. I don't trust him. I bet on him last fight. I don't trust him anymore. Moving on up the card, we got Dan Ige versus Andre Touchy-Feely. I'm going with Dan Ige, and I'm so confident in this pick. It's like a 3.5 unit play for me. Dan Ige, and I also think he wins by decision, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think the money line should be closer to like minus 230. I think Dan Ige has great grappling. He'll find ways to take Andre to the ground. He'll also land big shots. I think the big shots from Dan Ige are definitely going to be drawing big reactions out of Andre Feely whenever they land. So yeah, I got Dan Ige winning this one, and that's my official pick. Last but not least, we have the main event of UFC Vegas 86. We have Jack Hermansson versus Joe Pyfer. You heard me talking about it at the very beginning of this video. Everyone's talking about it. How could you not talk about it? Joe Pyfer has a punch force stronger than Francis Ngannou. A 300-pound gargantuan man, like the man who knocked down Tyson Fury. Joe Pyfer has a punch stronger than this guy. How is that possible? It's not possible. There's no way that that's possible, right? But I'm telling you right now, we don't know much about this guy. And we do too much as humans, interpreting punch power on some kind of machine as something that's going to directly translate to a man's success in a cage. So let's get all that unnecessary fluff out of there. I don't care about the punch power that this man possesses. All I know is what I've seen. And I did not like the way Joe Pyfer looked in his last fight against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. And that's why I'm going to have to fade him a little bit. If anything, I'm going with Jack Hermansson moneyline. If I have to look at this fight based on money lines, Jack Hermansson, if anything. But most likely, I just like the over 2.5. Nothing else really appeals to me. I think that the over 2.5 is a lock. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Like, follow, subscribe, and turn on my post notifications so you can be the first to get these props in. Peace.